Canada doubles down on record immigration-driven population surge. This is by Joe Guzzardi on Zero Hedge. Now, most of you already know I'm also Canadian, and we had to leave Cyprus because of the terrible consequences there, and we got into Canada with my father's student visa while my mother was working to support us for 2 years. My father had to go to McGill University again to get a master's in McGill in architecture. Both my parents were architects, as most of you know, and that was the time where I thought Canada was paradise, because we left a country that we had no central heating in our. Well, not we needed central heating in Cyprus. The winters are very mild, but we had a refrigerator, we had a freezer, we had a washing machine, and central heating. We had fantastic schools. We didn't want to leave our high school. We were begging our library teacher to let us read all night long. She said, "No, you have to go home to your families." We said, "Please, no." But anyway, it was just fantastic. Um, this is the immigration. Canada needs immigrants. Now, Canada's Immigration Minister Sean Fraser recently announced a bold immigration plan that has serious long-term deleterious consequences for the nation's population growth and environmental degradation. Fraser's goal is by 2025 to add another 1.45 million permanent resident immigrants to address what he and other government officials claim is a critical labor shortage. Allegedly, 1 million Canadian jobs are unfilled. The population today there is 37 million. It was 10 million when I lived there. So it's 4 times more now. So he says there's 1 million Canadian jobs waiting to be filled. Fraser said, "Make no mistake, this is a massive increase in economic migration to Canada." The minister's new plan projects a flood of new arrivals that will see 465,000 foreign nationals in 2023, rising to 500,000 in 2025. By comparison, 405,000 permanent residents were added last year. Fraser's immigration vision to admit a record-breaking number of immigrants is inspired by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's sentiments following his 2019 election, wherein he campaigned on more immigration. He followed up with welcoming messages to refugees. Defending his massive immigration increase, Fraser repeated familiar refrains about an aging Canadian population and a low birth rate. Without immigration, Fraser foresees a Canada that will not have the financial resources to fund schools, hospitals, and other services. In short, Fraser used scare tactics to deceive Canada's citizens. Canada's long-standing commitment to higher immigration levels has created an unprecedented population surge. In 2021, Canada's population rose to 37 million people, up 5.2% from 2016. Driven mostly by immigration, according to official government data, downtowns and distant suburbs of large cities have experienced the largest growth rates, of course. Canada added 1.8 million people between 2016 and 21, with nearly 80% of those new residents arriving from across the globe. Researchers from Statistics Canada, StatsCan, published in its Census 2021 release, gives Canada the dubious distinction of being the fastest growing G7 country. Almost 90% of new immigrants settled in urban centers, StatCan said, edging up the proportions of Canadians living in large urban centers to 73.7% from 73.2% 5 years ago. During the 5-year time period, Toronto's population increased 16.1%, Montreal increased 24.2%, and Vancouver 7.4%. The report concluded that Canada continues to urbanize as large city centres benefit most from new arrivals to the city, but not all Canadians would use benefit as a descriptor for rapid, uncontrolled population growth. Fraser's plan is so ill-conceived that even the most basic and fundamental need for arriving immigrants, that is, affordable housing, will be an insurmountable challenge. Canada is undergoing a severe housing crisis that has driven home prices out of the range for many buyers. Simply put, more people mean that more homes and more roads that lead to them must be built, and new home development creates urban sprawl. Mike Moffat, executive director of the Smart Prosperity Institute, outlined the crisis that exploding population has wrought for environmentalists. What am seeing is not being used for what land is not being used for housing is either being used for nature, like this green belt, or for farmlands, and we're already losing 175 acres a day in Ontario of farmland to development. Ontario environmentalists like Moffat are fighting to save its glorious green belt from ever greater development and sprawl. Today, plans to run a highway through the portion of the belt are advancing. Like most environmentalists in Ontario, Moffat fears that at any time the government could decide to develop little pieces of the green belt. Sooner or later, Moffat fears those little pieces could add up to great big chunks. To be crystal clear, the new immigration total will far exceed 1.45 million. New immigrants will grow their existing families and petition certain family members. Princeton University scholars estimate conservatively that each migrant petition 3 relatives living abroad. They petition 3 relatives living abroad for each migrant that comes in. Within a generation, the 4.15 million new Canadians could swell to more than 3 million. Trudeau and Fraser have concocted an immigration plan that will devastate Canada. Immigration is not a one-off. Arriving immigrants need nurturing, a compassionate exercise that often comes at the expense, at least partially, of the native-born population. The Canadian government and corporate elite are all in on more immigrants, but if the population at large knew that the arriving 1.45 million immigrants would more than double during many of their lifetimes and degrade Canada's natural beauty, it would be staunchly opposed. Now we know that Canada does not have a very long growing season. Basically everything, the St. Lawrence River freezes at the beginning of December. I used to live in Montreal, I know. And the first snowstorm always comes the 1st of November. For weeks before, the government advertises that we have to change and put the snow tires on the cars. Most people don't. And the first the snowstorm of the winter starts November 1st. So it's not at all like the winters we have in New York, for example. It's much harsher in Canada. This is authored by Joe Guzzardi on Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.